morning, gardeners. It's August 1st. Happy August. So the monsoons finally started rolling in. We got a big rain yesterday, so I'm really excited. I'm out here to check on these rainwater cisterns. We've been collecting water. We have about 3,300 gallons here total, and we're gonna check and see just how much those filled this up. We were out of water and we really weren't using rainwater here recently. So this is exciting now. Hopefully with this big accumulation of rainwater, we'll be able to run the entire garden off of rainwater throughout the rest of the season, and with any luck, throughout the rest of the year. So we're gonna do a little assessment here today and figure out where we are at. These tanks, they have this cover on them and you can just take them off with a screwdriver. And this is the third and last tank in the daisy chain, and it's over half full. So this is fantastic. I mean, this one we got about 550 to 600 gallons, something like that, just in the last rain. So that is really good news. It's so exciting to see these start to fill up. And I want to check on these other ones too and see how much we have. And we also need to check on the filter, especially early on in the season when you start to get some rain. There can be some accumulation on the roof that gets sort of flushed off into the filter, and we want to make sure that that's clear because we're going to have more rain coming. So we'll take a look at that, and then this is an exciting point in this particular garden with these tanks because we're about to start a water study. We have a meter that we can see just how much water we're pulling out of these, and we're watering this entire vegetable garden with the autofill irrigation ollas. So we're trying to stretch that water as far as we can and really conserve those resources, and hopefully run this garden as much as we can off of these cisterns throughout the year. So this is a start of an accumulation of data that I've been really excited about gathering for some time. So I'm going to check on these other tanks, and then we'll get everything all set up to where it's pumping out into the irrigation ollas. So, this still has some stuff in there. We'll just go ahead and spray this out with a hose, get it all nice and clean. It's really important to clean these out, especially between seasons, between rainy seasons. So we can get that going. And this tank is just a little bit higher than the other ones. In total, we got about 1,500 gallons of water. And that's a lot in one rain, and it really illustrates just how fast these can fill up during a big monsoon thunderstorm. And these hopefully will fill up fully very soon. I mean, they could even be full within the next week, assuming that we get some more rains that come through. It's really common to run off of pretty full tanks through a rainy season, like our monsoons here in Tucson. And then the idea is that by the end of that season, we are able to run off of what's in these tanks for as long as possible before we get more rain. So as we go through and track that with this, it'll be really interesting to see just how long the dry periods are where we actually run out of water, and how much of the city water we need to use. This is a pretty large garden that we're feeding off of these 3 tanks. But we're also using the irrigation ollas, and they reduce pretty substantially the amount of water that is used. That should help us quite a lot. If you're thinking about doing these types of tanks, it's always good to look into what local programs you have. We're really fortunate here in Tucson. These tanks actually were installed off of the the Tucson Water Rebate Program. You take a class through the Pima County Smartscape program, and then you're eligible for a fairly substantial rebate on installing these tanks. These ones were put in by Ecosense Landscaping, which is a company here in town that does this type of stuff, and they set it all up to where it has a float to where when they're totally empty, it can refill off of the city system so that it can really very easily go back and forth between the municipal water and also the rainwater. So it makes it a fairly hands-off system. You have to just kind of go through and clean filters now and then, and that is pressurized with a pump that ends up going out into the garden. And we're just using this water for the vegetable gardens. It's really valuable water, and we want to utilize it to grow food as much as we can. The vegetables are more sensitive, and they really do well off of rainwater, and they benefit from not getting all those salts that come with the municipal water. So some things to think about there if you want to look into getting this type of system set up. Put that back on. Here are some of the mechanical parts of this rainwater collection system. We have here the pump, and this is what's actually pushing that water, pressurizing it into the garden. And so, you know, some people do a gravity-fed type of thing, but you can set it up this way to where you have just typical pressures that you would have if you're running it off of your municipal water. This here is where we have our meter, and this is going to really help us to keep track of the amount of water that we're using. So we'll record this information, and then we can start gathering data as often as we want to. You know, it can be daily, it can be weekly, and we'll really see just how much water that we use. And so recording this over a longer period of time will be really valuable and help us to predict a little bit better just how much capacity we would need for rainwater collection using irrigation ollas. There's that element of it that's really important to me, to see, well, just how much water are we really going to use, because we know that we're using less, but we don't know exactly how much less. So this information is going to help quite a bit, and over time I'll share this with you and let you know kind of how that's going along, and hopefully that information will really help you when you're designing your own systems. So I'll give you a glimpse of how this is actually feeding into the water, into those irrigation ollas next. And I think that'll give you a pretty good, clear picture of this whole system. So all that system that I was showing you with the rainwater collection and the pump that's pressurizing that water, that's going into a typical valve manifold, just like you would have on any other irrigation system. So it's pressurized into there, and when those valves turn on, they fill up all of these irrigation ollas that we have here in the garden. This is an irrigation olla right here, and you can see when I pull the lid off, we have our patent pending system here with these irrigation ollas so that we can hook them up to your typical irrigation parts. This is 1/4-inch micro tubing going into poly tubing. So that water comes into here and supplies these, fills them up, and tops off each of these ollas. And they don't all drain at exactly the same rate. So it's nice that they can all just fill up where they need to be. And we only run the system for about 5 minutes to get all of these full. So that clay is a real porous material, and the water just slowly seeps out into the soil, and it's a really efficient, effective way to water these garden beds. So that's really the whole system that I've shown you here today, between the cisterns and the pump and then the garden beds here with these irrigation ollas. I hope this can give you a glimpse of really how this can all come together if you're thinking about using rainwater. And if you're in Tucson, don't forget about those rebates if you're a Tucson Water customer. Those $2,500 rebates are really great for offsetting some of the costs of getting a system like this going. So make sure to take advantage of that while it's still around. I hope this has been helpful. I certainly enjoy showing you what we're doing here in the garden, so stay tuned. As always, we'll have more videos coming, and happy gardening. Talk to you soon.